better than your currency. Splurging millions, buying houses like Monopoly. Fucking 9 to 5, man, the money is a joke to me. Buying cryptocurrency, my money in the privacy. I make it rain.
Hey guys and girls, welcome to this week's episode of the No BS with Birchy podcast. I'm your host, Nathan Birch, and this is a show unraveling the truth about the facade of the 21st century. And we're about to exit the matrix and wake up to motherfucking reality. Today, I want to talk about something really important. I want to talk about sort of in depth. I might actually make a webinar on this where I can do slides as well and go into it even a little bit further. Some things people were a bit weird about today, whether it's talking about the jabbies going on and the conspiracy theories about what's happening with the world with the alleged illness. I still remain with my views and thoughts on it. That's a scamdemic, and it's been used to usher in a lot of totalitarian, fascist and communist sort of views, and people to lose their rights, and for us to be gobbled up from the faceless hands that actually control us. So the thing I want to talk about this week is the collapse of our currency. I've talked about it a lot, but most importantly, the ushering in of a new currency. Our currency that we've got being the dollar. The dollar is dead. It's dying. It's 50 years old actually. On the 15th of August 2021, it will be 50 years since President Nixon took us off the Bretton Woods system and put the whole world on the petrodollar, which is basically the currency that we've got now, which is based on nothing. They can print as much currency as they want and give it away to whoever they want it to be. Which, if you or I wanted to go and run money like they do, would be in jail. But for some strange reason, a couple of different, or maybe 13 different bloodlines of people, and it's actually quite open out there. Like if you go back to an old Continental, there's like a little eye, and then there's 13 beams that come down. It's the 13 different bloodlines. These things are all symbolized in different currencies that we've seen. But the currency is dying, and we're going to get a new world, which we're being ushered into, whether you like it or not, which will be involving tracking and tracing and chipping and all that sort of stuff. And these are just my views, and I've said some crazy shit over the years, and things are getting very, very weird, and a lot of the stuff that I said 5 years ago is really happening now. So where will we be in 5 years? I think it's going to be very ugly for nearly everybody. And I think there's things that you can do to protect yourself, which I'll be going into that in the August webinar. So let's do a webinar for August commemorating 50 years of the dollar and the currency that we've got, and talking about how to protect yourself with in the world that we're going to be entering into. But I'm not going to go into how to protect yourself today. I'm going to talk about what I see and the risks around the world that we live in. So what will happen when we lose our currency? We've already got it set up. It's already there. They've been trying to keep us in this new world already. So people think money or currency that we use is in the format of dollars. You have the dollars in your bank account, you can go get it. A lot of people out there say Bitcoin, for example, right? They go, that's not real money, it's fake money. It's like, well, what is real? Well, you can't go get a Bitcoin out of an ATM. You can't go pick up a Bitcoin. It doesn't exist. Well, who has gone to go and check where the currency that we use, the dollars that we use, that doesn't exist, right? The dollars do not exist. They've just printed them. They used to have gold and silver. That's why your 10-cent piece, 5-cent piece, 50-cent piece is in the shape of like a silver. It did actually come back from history as being gold and silver. They used to be forms of trade, and copper as being 1 and 2 cent pieces, because that was the trashier sort of metal, and not as well the more rarer sort of metal. So that's what our currency used to be. And then they started taking and removing away. So we've gone from 92.5% silver in our currency down to a 50% silver in our currency. And then in 1966 in Australia, we lost all of our silver content from our currency. And in the early 90s, we lost all of our copper out of our currency. So really the money that we're using is just fake, worthless, cheap metal that you can get anywhere. It's just like garbage that we're using as a currency. So it's gone from getting that special precious metal that you had, like whether it be gold or silver, where it was 92.5, and then they started adding in more copper and nickel into the coinage, breaking it down from 100% purity down to 50% purity, then removing it altogether. But it's gone worse than that, right? So then they just started printing pieces of paper with dead criminals printed on it, and they just go, we'll just issue you pieces of paper as IOUs. And then they started taking it a step further and saying, well, let's just put it as a little digit on the spreadsheet. So, the banking system is basically one big ledger, and that big ledger controls all the transactions that have gone throughout the day. And at the end of the day, the banks settle those ledgers, archive them, and then, they start a new day. And that's why the banking system is used to have to wait for 2 or 3 days for the money to land in your bank account, etc. But slowly over the last few years, everything's becoming digital. So did you know that only 1% of the money out there in the system, so dollars, let's say $100 notes, $5 notes, $10 notes, whatever, did you know that only 1% of that is actually in the format of physical money that you can get out? The other 99% of it is just digits in a ledger. If you go to the bank and ask, you might have $100,000 in your bank account. You go to the bank and say, can I please have $100,000? They give you a million questions. Why do you want the money? What are you going to do with it? All that sort of stuff. And they treat you like a criminal. It's not your money, right? If the money is in the bank and you can't get it out, it's not yours. It's the system, right? And we're heading into a world where they're trying to remove the fact that you can actually get access to that money. So we're heading into a totally cashless society. And as we enter into the phase of a cashless society, the money is never yours. It's just purely there in the ledger. I believe that we're heading into that. We can very clearly see that we're heading into a digital currency. It's been here for a long time, whether it be your credit card, your FPOS card, whatever you want to call it. Now you've got the Apple Pay, you've got apps, you can send it straight away. People don't use cash anymore. They say, there's a disease, you might get sick, you might die, all these sorts of things, but they don't care when you're entering the buttons on the touchpad on the FPOS machine or whatever when you're handing it over. But that might change, right? It might change where you do like a Demolition Man style. If you watch Demolition Man to Sylvester Stallone and Wesley Snipes from back in, I think, 1993 or 1994, you know what I'm referring to. That is the world we are heading into. A totalitarian, Orwellian, fascist, controlled world is where we're heading into. We're going to be entering into just digital currency. So let's think about this, right? In China, there's a social credit system. China is communism, right? Like it or not, is what it is. The system is based on social credits. You're a good boy, you get a little treat like you're a dog. You're a bad boy, you lose the fact that you can feed your family, right? All your rights have gone. It comes down to this computer system, which is delivering whether you should live, whether you shouldn't, whether you get food, whether you don't, whether you can participate in the world. Social credit system has been involved, and it just keeps evolving. We're entering into a world now where they're taking away all of our money, and they are forcing us to use different sort of apps. How they're going to usher in this new digital currency. So as of the start of 2021, all the central banks around the world have put out a process to say that they'll be issuing a new digital wallet, right? Why are they issuing a new digital wallet? Who's going to take it? People are going to go, I don't want a digital wallet. Why do I need a digital wallet for? I'm happy with my cash that I'm using. All the tradies out there, I don't want to use this digital wallet, I want my cash. But why are they issuing it? How do they get take up? Well, suddenly everyone's got to get, a jabby into their arm, right? And if you get a jabby, you can use this special money. We'll give you some benefits. You get $1,000 for being a good boy or girl because you got the jabby. And you can go and spend some money, sell us your data, and we have a new wallet that you install on your phone, and you get 4 $25 dine and wine vouchers in Sydney, and you can spend them wherever you want. But now you've entered yourself into the system, right? You've entered yourself into this system, and it's just ironic that the time that they're introducing all of these laws and changes and people aren't even questioning it. I don't want to go too deep in it because that's where I lose people. People start going, Nathan's lost his mind again. But I'll still go and do it. But, we're going into this world where the central banks are issuing us with these new digital wallets. We're being forced to use them. Soon you won't be able to go into a place or a premises without doing a check-in, the QR code, which is mandatory, right? It's mandatory throughout all businesses in New South Wales now. I've got like every day for the last week, I've got an email saying that every business must check in, and telling me that all my businesses need to have this check-in for whether it's staff or a visitor or whatever the case may be. But we're now in a world where we're conditioned to accept that we touch two phones together, or an FPOS machine in your phone, or your watch in your phone, and whatever the case may be. We're now at a point where we can go completely cashless, which is very, very scary, because if the government don't like you, they can turn your money off, right? Who's ever had their bank account seized for whatever reason, right? I haven't, but I've seen it happen, and I've heard the ramifications. I thought it sounds very terrible, right? But people do have their bank accounts seized. People can be thrown away and locked away in a cage, whatever the case may be, for doing nothing. If you're in China, you could walk across the road and jaywalk, right? Who hasn't jaywalked, right? I'm sure everybody does a lot worse things throughout the day, like not turning their blinker on when they turn into their street, or not turning their blinker on when they turn in their driveway, whatever the case may be. Things people do on a day-to-day basis. But now we've got these biometric cameras, which are everywhere, right? Go to your local shopping centre, go to your local large retailer, go to your local public transport. All the cameras are biometric, and they pick up very, very good information. They look at your face, and they can identify who you are, your code, your system, how much money you got, all these different things. They've been rolled out in Australia. They started getting rolled out about 4 years ago, and they've been very, very big in China. You could literally cross the road as a jaywalker. From one side of the road, you walk across like it's Frogger. For those of you that are old enough to know what Frogger the computer game is, you get to the other side and you don't get hit by a car. Great. But when you get to the other side, it goes, you've been a bad boy or girl, and then they take $50 because that's your fine, right? You have no control. You're like, hang on a second, where did my liberty go? Where did my freedom go? I'm just a person. I'm just a human walking across the road. These social credit systems, if you are bad, if you don't wear your mask, if you don't check in, if you don't comply, this is full-on communist, totalitarianism, fascism, and is a very, very ugly thing. But we're being ushered into this. I believe that we're going to have a digital currency which is on the back of all of these rules and regulations that we're finding out right now. And they're taking us into a complete cashless society, and I believe that this will be done over the course of the next 10 years. When you have a cashless society, they can control the currency more. So what I mean by that is that if you wanted to cause a bank run, if you went to the bank, if everybody goes, I'm going to go to the bank today and pull out all my money, the bank would have no money, allegedly, because they work with the fractional reserve banking system, and then the bank would be in default. Right, so you'd have a thing called a bank run, which happened a lot of times in the 70s, the 80s, the 90s. There was bank runs happening all the time because they just didn't have enough money to keep themselves liquid and keep themselves afloat. But if you couldn't take your money out of the bank, it's always trapped in the banking system, then you couldn't have a thing called a bank run. So what this means is, as we head into the hyperinflation territory, they can put different measures into the currency. They can say, well, if you don't spend your money in 2 weeks, we'll delete it. If you have too much money in your bank account, we'll delete it. If we don't like you, we'll delete it. If we say that you've created a criminal act, we'll delete it, right? This is the world that we are heading into. It's a good way of tracking us, tracing us, chipping us, and controlling our movements to, for the betterment of who, right? Literally who. So if you ask me, it sounds like a very shitty system. It could be great for the ruling class, but it's bad for the peasants or the normal people, which is all of us. That's not the ruling and the elite powers. So I believe that there's it's not good for starters, and it's going to be given away as little freebies. If you want to get your JobKeeper, you're going to have to opt into it to get it from the system. If you want to get all the government will be giving away a lot of special little incentives, let's call it, for people to opt in, sign up, sell their data to, and are going to be basically third line forced into using this as a new system. They can tax you as they want. if you want to, who's ever had a problem go down and you've had to go to a government organisation to try and, work it out, right? Whether it's Medicare, whether it's dealing with your rego papers on your car, whether it's dealing with, Centrelink if you got that. Like, who's ever had to deal with that and the ring around? Like, you spend your whole day just trying to work out where did my $50 go, or why do I have to pay this $50? You end up just saying, oh, we'll just take it, whatever. That is the world. That is full-on control system. And that is the money that we're heading to. We're going to lose our currency. We're going to enter that. So, might sound a bit scary, right? And there's lots of different ways to protect yourself. Just remember, as a human being, right, money is not important. It's a few other things, right? You need shelter, you need barterability, you need trade, you need the ability for access food, water, clean air, power and electricity, and petrol to move your automobile so you can travel to see your friends, your loved ones, all that. So there's certain things that I think everybody should be taking step towards in protecting themselves. And I'll touch on it briefly here, and I'll go into it much more deeper in my webinar in August. So keep an eye out for that. If you're not subscribed to the webinars, hit up my team at admin@B.Invested.com.au. It'll be the first Wednesday of August, and I'll go into it more deeper. But in short, you want to make sure you've got access to food, right? If you don't fit into this new system, they could literally lock you out and say you can't come to the shop because you haven't worn a mask, right? We can see people locked out of a shop because they don't want to wear a mask, right? I know someone the other day that's got a heart condition. They're working on 25% of their heart is working, and they were in a hospital and they were refused service because they didn't wear a mask, right? And if someone doesn't want to wear a mask, they're not allowed to operate in the world. Imagine how bad it could be if they say you can't eat, you can't travel, you can't do this, you can't do that. Everyone's locked in the home and everyone's loving it. It's like a trial to communism for everyone. But, having access to food, very important. Grow your own food. If you can have a little garden, you can have a little access to veggie patch, whatever the case may be, have access to chickens, work out, get a group of people around you, whether it be someone that can, there might be vegans, there might be vegetarians here, there might be whatever. So apologies from going graphical, but if you need a butcher, right, find yourself a butcher in your community, right? Community is very important. Have a community, right? You don't want to be asking for favors from the toughest guy from the block. You want to be the toughest guy on the block. So make sure that you've got access to someone that could, turn your lamb into dinner, right? Make sure you've got access to fruit and vegetables, plants for your dinner. Make sure you've got access to that. Make sure you've got access to water, right? And you've got backup sources. Make sure you've got access to electricity. And make sure you've got access to commodities that can get you moving throughout a system. Make sure you've got, a property that could be in the bush, right? Like a bug out house. Make sure you've got a property near the water, which you could go to and stay at. Make sure that you've got access to trade, which is old school money, right? And I'm not talking about the money, the currency that we use. I'm talking about real money, so gold and silver sort of coins. So one of the things that I did a long while ago was I actually started buying tons and tons and tons of old pennies and 1 and 2 cent pieces before the copper prices went up. So worst case scenario is I actually bought old school money, which had physical metal value and content to it for cheaper than the spot price. So I just picked it up for basically the face value, and now I've got it stored everywhere. Like, this stuff is literally like in all these storage facilities, having access to old 1 and 2 cent pieces, right? They're very hard to store, so you've got to put them in security sort of places on pallets, and you need to have forklifts to it and stuff like that if you want to go on scale. But everyone should have some money. Like, imagine if you couldn't trade using a digital app or whatever the case may be, and you wanted to trade and barter with someone. You want to have something that people might accept. So having old school money is one good thing. Second thing is having access to cryptocurrencies, and I'm not talking about no Fed coin, because that's shit. Like, I do not want to participate in that in whatsoever. If I was given money in that new currency, in that digital currency that they're going to be using and rolling out, I would be wanting to get rid of that as quick as possible and converting it to some other form of currency. So having stuff like Bitcoin, Litecoin, Ethereum, all those sort of cryptocurrencies that we see out there, legacy sort of Genesis ones. I'm not talking about buying them to invest and try and get a Lambo or, see them 100 times their value. I'm just talking about being able to trade and say, hey, look, I want 10 litres of petrol so I can put in my truck. Can I get 10 litres? And they say, no, you don't have anything I can have as value. I'll be like, well, can I just send you a little bit of, cryptocurrency and you give me the petrol? I'll be like, yeah, cool, I'll take that. So having access to barterability is very, very important. Protect yourself going out of this system, because our currency that we've got is going to, in 10 years, I know it will look like that, because there's no other way, no other exit for this system that we're in, is that they will crash our currency. Our currency will lose all its value. You have a $5 note, it will buy you nothing. Who remembers having $5 as a kid, right? It could have bought you everything at the shop. Who remembers going to buy a bag of chips for $2? It cost you $7 for a bag of chips, and you get a little cup of it now. A burger for like $3 or $5 from your local takeaway shop. You're looking at like $10, $15 for a burger nowadays. A can of drink used to be like 60 cents. Now it's $3 or $4 for a little can of soft drink. 375 mils. It didn't get any better. It didn't get any bigger. In most circumstances, it got smaller. But those little cans have gone up 5, 6, 7 times in value. It's not that it's gone up in value, it's the currency has lost its value. So don't try saving the currency that we're using of choice, being the dollars, because they're going to lose all value via hyperinflation. So when do I think this will come in? I think it's being ushered in right now. I think that it's very evident. If you want to get your universal basic income, everyone's going to be on this Centrelink. Everyone's going to get this free money. We're all getting free money now, and the hurdles to get into it is becoming harder and harder to get this free so-called currency that we've got. If you want to get some government stimulus, you're going to have to sell your soul, i.e. all of your data, to the government. Opt into their MyGov app, opt into their Centrelink app, opt into their Dine and Wine app, and all these apps will have your data and have a digital footprint of you. So when you go and walk out of your house and you walk through society, the system is calibrated to understand who you are, how you walk. Even if you've got a bit of a limp, it'll pick that up. All these sorts of things, and I see that being rolled out right now. It's happening. Right? People aren't questioning this. People are just accepting of it. And that is a scary, scary world. So do I say it as a fearful thing? I'm not saying it as fear. I'm just saying it because I see it. I think there's great opportunity around that. Make sure that you, your family, your loved ones are prepared. Make sure you educate yourself, get skill sets that will make you needed by many people out there. Build yourself a community where you've got other people that you have in your network which understand how to get your food. And if people didn't have water or food supplied, like we saw how stupid people were in 2020, right? They go to the shops, they take all the stuff off the shelves, whatever. Those shops were stripped bare within 24 hours, right? Imagine if you had no access to food for a day, a week, a month. Imagine there was no food there. Imagine you have to go there and say, hey, please, can I beg for some food? Right? You don't want to be that person. You want to know that you've got a community that can back you, that can support you, and that you're all, contributing. Maybe, I did a podcast last week that I talked about processes, systems, procedures, building inside of a business. Maybe it's something that you look at, building a process and a system as your survival guide, and make sure that you've got, good people around you. Who's on your team? If shit hits a fan, who's going to be the people that you're going to be hanging around? Who's your community? Where could you go to? Where could you be safe from all the nastiness going on around the world? For me personally, I've tried to protect myself as much as I can. I've got eco-friendly resorts. I've got all different stuff that I can, be able to chill back and be able to grow and keep myself self-sustainable for many, many years to come. So, buying large eco resorts and stuff like that isn't something that, everybody can go do. I understand that, but putting a veggie garden out the backyard, having a community, right? These things don't cost anything. It's just, it takes planning and strategy to be able to trade and network and have a community around you. So, I take it as a privilege that you like watching me and like hearing what I have to say, and sometimes it does sound weird and sometimes it is a bit wacky, and that's what I love about this community that I've been able to create over the last 12 years. So keep watching, keep listening, and I'll be back here next week to talk more about everything that's happening on the world. Do keep an eye out for access to the webinar, where I'll be going into detail on ways to specifically protect yourself in this new currency, in this new world that we're being pushed into, how to deal with communism, how to deal with totalitarianism. I don't know, I've never lived in this world beforehand, but I've done a lot of research on different sort of societies and different systems and different sort of countries, and this is the first time it's been a full world sort of communism rollout, but there is sort of things that people have done around the world to protect themselves in different sort of scenarios very similar to this, and I'll be sharing that with you in the webinar. We'll catch up soon. Thanks a lot for watching. Google, Apple, Spotify, you can find us at, or YouTube at youtube.com/B.Invested. Catch up soon. Have a great week. Bye for now.
Like Bilal said, man, we're stuck in the matrix. This my advice, don't care if you take it. The dollar back to die, soon to be hyperinflated. This my 2 cents, don't care if you save it. Joint be decentralized and you will see you've been lied to the whole time, and it's the irony, cause they do the exact opposite. You become a slave to the system, enough your money, all they do is profit. There's no conspiracy theory, you better hear me. Crypto will set you free before the system does. I don't care if you do or you don't, but what I'm saying is the truth to the reason you choke. I've never been a failure, excuse my behavior. Keep talking, haters doing me a favor. They all telling lies, I know what they been telling you. I'm the opposite of Donald Trump of Australia. It's amazing, here for the taking. My time is never wasted, just getting wasted. These girls say I'm really breathtaking.